Simon steals a car to get him up to Scotland. The journey is thankfully uneventful, which gives him a chance to calm down. However, it also allows his thoughts to wander into unwanted territory, like Sophie and her new man, Glitterteeth. On the ferry crossing to Stornoway, Simon starts to feel jittery, but isn't sure if this is an indication of nerves or simply excitement. He muses that the physical sensations of both are strangely the same. When he finally gets to the desolate place where Archie had buried the money, all worries and concerns have left him. He had taken on a real challenge, felt the fear, and did it anyway. But the simple sound of a twig snapping underfoot behind him brings his world crashing down. He is not alone. Simon turns to face his unwelcome stalker, Mrs. Candles. What was Rebecca doing here? Had she simply been intrigued by my clumsy lie about going on an interview and followed me? Or was there something more sinister in her presence? Maybe what she held in her hand was a pretty good indication. "Is that a real gun?" I asked. She smiled awkwardly. "As observant as ever, Simon." She paused, looked at the still unbroken ground, then back to me. "Are you going to dig, then?" "Dig for what? What do you think is down there?" She frowned. "Do you think I just happened to follow you for hundreds of miles to this godforsaken island on a whim?" I was strangely unfazed by a gun being pointed at me. The truth is that I had never actually seen a gun in the flesh before, but years of film and television viewing had made firearms seem ubiquitous and somehow almost prosaic. "That's not a real gun. Where would you get a real gun from?" "Archie's money, Simon. For fuck's sake, just dig." I turned and lifted the spade, held it in mid-air, and then looked at her over my shoulder. "You'd actually shoot me? I mean, you'd kill me? Just like that?" Rebecca continued a hard stare without blinking. I threw the spade to the ground. She raised the gun and took aim. "Really, Rebecca? Really? What happened to all that anger management?" She pulled the hammer back, producing a loud click. Her eyes momentarily looked at the gun, then back to me. "If you have a gun," she said, "you don't need anger management." Carefully tilting the barrel down a few degrees, she tightened the pressure on the trigger. A sudden noise cracked my eardrums, as if I had been hit with a hammer. Earth exploded at my feet, making me cry out involuntarily. "Fuck!" I screamed. Instantly, Rebecca lowered the gun and moved a pace towards me. "Shit! Fuck! I'm so sorry. Are you all right?" "Fucking hell, Rebecca! You could have killed me!" I looked at my feet and the small crater the bullet had made. Nothing was bleeding and I could feel no pain, just a loud ringing in both ears. Rebecca had regained her former composure and seemed to have recovered from startling herself. A slight smile exposed her tightly clenched teeth. "Real enough? Dig, Simon. Dig." I picked up the spade and started to break the cold earth. This was no longer fun. And I couldn't help recalling all the films I had seen of people being made to dig their own graves. The ground suddenly became less resistant under the spade. I stopped and got to my knees. I pulled black bin bags from the hole one by one. I threw them to Rebecca's feet. "That's all of them," I said, standing up. "So what now?" She waved the gun to her right. A few yards away was the broken-down wooden hut. I walked slowly towards it, wondering what was going to happen next. Behind me, I could hear her dragging the plastic bags. At the hut, I looked back at her. She pointed with the gun again, and I pushed the door open. The hut smelt cold and desolate. I felt much the same. My hands were red, dirty, and in places bleeding. I repeatedly stretched my fingers, then made fists. There was no aggression in this. My hands were just cold and stiff, but all I could feel was deflated. Rebecca motioned to a paraffin heater, and with some matches I found next to it, I lit the wick. I cupped my hands over the heater, rubbing them together and stamping gently to warm up. I almost forgot about Rebecca, but when I looked at her, she seemed diminished, as if she had suddenly realized she was out of her depth. "You can put the gun away if you like," I said. "I'm not going to do anything," I laughed. "For one thing, I'm too bloody cold." She put the gun into her coat pocket, then started towards me in the warmth of the heater. "You have put the safety catch on, haven't you?" I asked, like a mother checking that her child had remembered to take her hat. "Yes, of course," she answered quickly, then half turned and fiddled awkwardly with the gun before joining me. "How did you know about the money?" She lifted her face from the glow of the fire. "Tony, my boyfriend. He was one of the gang with Archie. We were waiting for Archie to make a move, and then I realized he had given that job to you. So you followed me." My car's parked a little way down the road. There was an awkward silence. I feared we were both thinking the same thing. "You don't have to do anything to me. I'm happy to let you go and then drive back to London." Rebecca looked at me and sighed slowly. "What?" I said. "I'm not a criminal. I thought I was, but I'm not. I'll just go back to being a law-abiding nobody." "You stole a car, Simon." "I'll dump it and get the train." She closed her eyes momentarily. "You were interviewed by the police in Carlisle?" "Well, yes, but that wasn't to do with this. That was about Julie." She took my arm, but held me tighter than I could understand. "How do I know you didn't tell the police everything? How do I know they are not waiting for you to call them and tell them about me and Tony?" "But I don't know Tony. And why would I tell them about you? What would I gain?" "They have your balls in their hands. If life has taught me nothing else, it's taught me to never trust a man whose balls are gripped by someone else, especially when that someone is the police." "Okay, so what do you propose?" She scanned the contents of the hut and reached for something hanging on the wall. A coil of rope. "Well, we both know I haven't got the guts to kill you in cold blood," she said. I didn't know whether to inquire about the rope. "So we can work something out then?" I suggested, still confused and becoming increasingly worried. She shook her head. No, we can't. I can't leave you as a threat. Well, what then? I could feel my fear turning to anger. You can't leave me as a threat, and you can't kill me, Rebecca cut in. I said I can't kill you in cold blood. I didn't say I can't kill you. She made a move towards me. Put your hands out in front of you, she said. It is astonishing what a meek man can do under such pressure. It must have occurred to me in that second that when you have nothing to lose, no action, however reckless, continues to carry any risk at all. I threw myself at her, but tripped on the heater. It smashed to the floor, spilling paraffin onto the wooden floorboards. I remembered from camping holidays that these heaters have a safety feature. As with any hydrocarbon fuel, it is only the vapour in oxygen that will ignite. If the fire tipped over, the rush of liquid fuel would extinguish the flame as effectively as water. But for some reason this didn't happen. The floor became a sea of flames and we both ran for the door. Strangely, this catastrophe bonded killer and prey. We ran in the same direction, ironically with me chasing after her, until we slowed, then sat on the grass, a little soot-stained and very breathless. She got to her feet and brushed herself down. I stood up next to her and we turned to view the bonfire we had started. Clouds of dense grey smoke rose into the even greyer sky. Our realization came in unison. We simultaneously shouted, "Shit!" Running up the hill, breathing heavily with Rebecca close behind me, I thought every second that passed could be another £1,000 consumed by the fire. The door stood as we had left it, flung open from our hasty exit moments before. Flames licked it hungrily, turning the weather-worn pine to charcoal. Neither of us interrupted our frenzied pace. We stormed into the hut like seasoned firemen. Luckily, Rebecca had left the bags near the doorway, but far enough away that the flames had yet to reach them. All 5 were intact, and although the plastic had begun to soften, we managed to grab them without sustaining serious injury or spilling the contents. As quickly as the panic had consumed us, back at our former spot down the hill, calm returned. Rebecca and I studied each other. She slowly reached into her coat without taking her eyes from mine. She pulled out a paper tissue, leaned nearer to me and held it in front of my face. "Spit," she said. "What?" I said simply, searching for comprehension. She jerked the tissue an inch or 2 from my mouth. I dribbled saliva onto the paper. Rebecca smiled, then gently wiped soot from my face. I tentatively smiled back at her. "Thanks." "I noticed a barn near where I stopped my car," she said. "Come on." She started walking down the hill away from me, dragging the bin bags behind her. Had things really changed between us? Was the danger over, or was this a God-given opportunity to run in the opposite direction? I really had no idea anymore. My mind was awash with fire, gunfire, and a wish that I had never, ever laid my eyes on Archie.